Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and also happy Chap Ko Mei. And this is the last day of Chinese New Year celebrations. And so, first of all, I would like to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend this talk, especially on Chap Ko Mei. And of course, now I think this Chap Ko Mei will be very different because we have two distinguished professors from Japan, and Professor SHINOZAKI Kaori and Professor Tazuki Katoka. So we have two speakers, and they are given two different talks, one after the other. And we have in between, we have a 30 minutes break. Okay, that's first. I would like to introduce Professor SHINOZAKI Kaori. She's from University of Kitakyushu. So she is a professor of the Faculty of Foreign Study, University of Kitakyushu, Japan. So she has been doing research on the Chinese community in multi-ethnic Malaysian society. And her recent publications, of course, that's the book she just published this year, right? This year, yeah. And yeah. Okay, and she also has some book chapters and also journal articles. Today she's going to speak on the political participation in multiple homelands, the Chinese business community in Penang and the Straits Settlements. I think you have read the abstracts. So I think this is a very interesting topic, and to look at the political aspect and of the Penang Chinese business community, and not only their participations in politics in Penang, but also in China, in China. So let me invite Professor SHINOZAKI and to share with us with her research. Okay, thank you. This is forward, this is backward.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's my talk. And I would like to thank Dr. Wong Yi-Tuan to host today's my topic. And also I would like to thank Dr. Yumi Kitamura, the leader of our research group, to facilitate this great opportunity for me. Okay, let me start my talk, political participation in multiple homelands. Okay. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am now attached to the University of Kitakyushu since 2009. Here is Japan, and Kitakyushu is a northern tip of Kyushu Island. Is here. Yes, I came from here. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. Okay. As just now, Dr. Wong introduced me that I am my research topic. My research topic is a Chinese community in multi-ethnic society of Malaysia. I have lived in Malaysia for 5 years altogether, 1999 to 2001, as a research student at University Malaya. I was attached to history department and collected materials around Malay, and sometimes I took a class of a Chinese department. And from year 2004 to 2005, I did research at the National Archive or National Library or University of Malaya in Kuala Lumpur. Then after that, after I finished my PhD, I worked for the Embassy of Japan in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, as a researcher. Then after that, I had a chance to work in Kitakyushu. And this is my recent publication. Recent, but it was already, it was published in 2017. And the title is Political Participation in Multiple Homelands, Protagonists of the Chinese in Penang, the Straits Settlements. This book is written in Japanese, but I translated chapter by chapter and published in a journal or book chapter. So today's topic is mainly from this book. Okay. I am going to talk about the political participation of the Penan Chinese in both the Straits Settlements and China from late 19th century to early 20th century. And the main figure is business community, business persons involved in activities of the Penan Chinese Chamber of Commerce. So this is a picture of the committee members when the Chamber of Commerce was established in 1903. I just introduced how should I say, the administrative maps. The blue places is Straits Settlements, and these 4 states, orange in color, Perak, Pahang, Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, is a federated Malay states. And other parts are Perlis, Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, Johor is unfederated Malay states. Today I mention Straits Settlements and the federated Malay states in my presentation. And you would ask me why I focus on the political participation in multiple homelands. I mean, Straits Settlements and China. Why this question? Why this interest? Because I want to depart from the conventional wisdom of the previous studies on political identity of the Chinese in Southeast Asia. The previous studies questioned Chinese people in Southeast Asia, their identity is whether China-oriented or local-oriented, either one. And most of researchers questioned when their consciousness changed from Huajiao to Hualien. Huajiao is a Chinese nationals living overseas, while Hualien is a Chinese with nationality of country of living, country of residence. This kind of a view is based on the one international norm which was a product of 20th century, century of war. The norm is one nationality, one person. So one person only had one national identity. That is a norm in 20th century. So I would like to kind of bring a new point of view to my today's topic. The outline will be, this talk will be, have 3 parts. First part is Chinese-oriented or local-oriented, a theory developed in the US during the Cold War, 1950s to 60s. Second part is from Huajiao to Hualien, counter theory developed in Southeast Asia against the US theory, 1970s, 1990s. And the last part is Penan Chinese political participation, free from the norms of the 20th century. So first 2 parts is mainly about the review of the previous studies. Today I want to, pay my highest respect to the previous studies. But I believe as a researcher, scholar, we have to do something better than the previous studies. So today I try to introduce the contribution of the predecessor But at the same time, I would like to go beyond the previous studies. That is what I want to try today. Okay, first I would let me talk about the Chinese-oriented or local-oriented theory developed in the US during the Cold War. As you know, in Asia, People's Republic of China established in 1949, and in Korean Peninsula, the North Korea established in 1951. So Western countries were concerned that communism would spread to Southeast Asia through the Chinese community, because they believe that Chinese community is still maintain their own culture. So there is a saying that once a Chinese, always Chinese. So people in West, especially those who are working in a diplomat in US, believe that the Chinese in Southeast Asia would maintain firm identity towards China. So to this kind of perception, the scholars of area studies in the US criticize. It includes William Skinner, who is famous for the study of Thai Chinese, and Donald Wilmot, who studied Indonesian Chinese, and Edgar Wickberg, who studied Philippine Chinese history. What they criticized, or what they countered to this point of view was, those scholars pointed out that there are two types of Chinese community in Southeast Asia. One is a type highly acculturated Chinese, who seldom speak Chinese and who more often speak the local language like Bahasa Indonesia or Thai language. And yeah, that is type 1. And the type 2 is a less acculturated Chinese. Chinese who still speak their own language, Chinese, and their way of life looks like maintain the Chinese way, and they really mix with other community. And those scholars predicted that the type 1 would increase in number in the future, maybe in 10 years or 20. And that would eventually result in the integration of the Chinese community into the majority community. So they say that you don't have to be so nervous about the Chinese in South Asia. But they show that they say that there was an exception. That is Malaya and Borneo. Especially William Skinner predicted that the Chinese-ness would be reproduced in those areas. Actually, in Malaya and Borneo, the Chinese schools were maintained as a part of the national education system in Malaysia. I think this is a very good policy in Malaysia to respect our own cultures or own language, and very positive to maintain those own cultures and language. But from the outside, this is a kind of a fear because it's to those scholars, it seems like that the Chinese in Malaya and Borneo still once a Chinese, always Chinese. Then to this theory in US, there appeared a counter theory in Southeast Asian scholars that was during 1970s to 1990s. They separated identity, political one and cultural one. The famous figures, the famous scholars started this theory is Wang Gongwu, who was born in Surabaya, Indonesia, and raised in Perak, Ipoh, and studied in Singapore, UK, China, and Australia. And he is a very well-known scholar in studying the Asian politics. And another one is the Leo Suryadinata. He is Indonesian, and when he was a student, he entered the Nanyang University in Singapore, and he studied there. And then after that, he continued to study based in Singapore. And he is also famous for the scholars of political science in Southeast Asia. And there are more other scholars and researchers who follow the theory, this separation of identity, political one and culture one. Then what they pointed out was that the Chinese in Southeast Asia are ethnically Chinese, but they chose the nationality of countries of residence. And they also pointed out that decisive factor is not the culture, but their own consciousness. Then they started to claim that they should draw a clear line, clear division between Huajiao and Hualen. Huajiao can be used only for those the Chinese nationals living overseas. But if the Chinese who chose the nationality of country of residence, you cannot call them Huajiao. You should call them Hualen. So there is a big difference between Huajiao and Hualen. And based on this theory, this is also famous theory among the political identity of Chinese community in Southeast Asia. Wang Gungwu divided three orientations of the Chinese community in Southeast Asia. The group A is a China-oriented. Group B is a politically indifferent. They don't want to openly show their political orientation. Rather, they avoid the politics. This is mostly the business community in every city, every port. And the group C is a local-oriented Chinese. Local-oriented means they are more interested in the local politics of the country of residence. So there is someone in a group B. And Wang Gungwu said there is a jumping between the group. But, yes, they say that identity can shift from one to another. Yes. But he didn't think there will be a dual or multiple orientation. There should have only one orientation. If you choose A, then you stay A. If you choose C, you stay C. And there is no overlap between Group A and Group C. There is an overlap Group A between Group A and B, and Group B and Group C. But there is no overlap Group A and C. And if those who belong to Group A change his consciousness to local-oriented, this transition process is called from Huajiao to Hualen. So this is also thing that consider that one's identity orient only one how should I say? There is only one orientation. There is no multiple orientation. And let me move away from the topics of the Chinese. I want to point out how this one person with one nationality norm appeared. Actually, this is international norms of the 20th century, especially the former part of 20th century. Because, as you know, the 20th century is a century of world war. And nation states, every nation state needed to secure tax and soldier to survive the war. and the person with dual nationality were problematic. And actually, there are a lot of attempts to avoid the dual nationality. For example, from the late 19th century onward, the treaty, US and the European countries had treaties to avoid this dual nationality. And in 1930, League of Nations adopted convention on certain questions relating to the conflict of nationality laws. It says that it is in the general interest of the international community to secure that all its members should recognize that every person should have a nationality and should have one nationality only. So this is a kind of an international norm that every nation state or every single person should follow. But the Chinese born in the Straits Settlements actually could enjoy dual nationality until the 1940s. There is two principles to give the nationality. In Straits Settlements, it was based on the jus soli, is that those who born in a Straits Settlement could get the nationality as a British nationality. And on the other hand, in China, they follow the jus sanguinis. It is the principle to give the nationality along the lineage line. And norms on the nationality have gradually changed in the latter half of the 20th century. And there are more and more countries that recognize dual nationalities. For example, US, Canada, Australia, those immigrant countries, and the European countries, and Latin America countries. And even in Asia, India, Philippines, Vietnam admit the dual nationality. So there are the one person, one nationality is not the universal norm, but there should have more options between one person with the state, how one person get the connection, get the relationship with the state. The one person can have a dual nationality or can have a multiple relationship with two or more countries. And if we look at the Penan Chinese political participation, we can see this very flexible reaction of the Penan Chinese. Okay, so this is the Penan Chinese Chamber of Commerce, established in June 1903. The committee members for the year 1903 were 6 members. And there were 10 Hokkien, 5 Cantonese, and 1 Hakka. And 11 members' biographical information is available. The birthplace, 9 were born in Penan, 1 was born in Perak, 1 was born in China. And birth year was 3 was born in the 1850s, 1 was born in 1860s, 7 born in the 1870s. And they also requested to bestow the Chinese Chamber of Commerce the right to make a recommendation of Chinese representatives to the governor or high commissioner. Yeah, so this is all about their activism, political activism in the Straits Settlements. So maybe it will be quite clear that they are very, very active in get involved in the local politics to have a channel with the government. And here I am going to introduce their political activism in China. The Penan Chinese Chamber of Commerce registered with the Qing government in January 1907. And it enabled the Penan Chinese Chamber of Commerce to establish networks with the chambers of commerce in China. Since 1904, the chambers of commerce emerged in major ports, major cities throughout China. So the Penan Chinese Chamber of Commerce attempted to strengthen ties with the authority in China, as well as business community in China, in order to secure safety when returning to China. So what they asked Qing government was not the protection in the Straits Settlements. What they asked was their safety in China, because there was a lot of incident when they went back to China. Because in China, there was a rumor that those who came back to overseas are rich, so maybe we steal something, or we maybe give them a flower and take money or something like that. So people who returned to China had a very big problem when they went back to China. So they wanted to improve this situation with strengthening the ties with government and business community. The second purpose was that they wanted to chase debtors who had escaped to China. Yes, yeah. As you know, because it's quite free coming into the Straits Settlements or coming back to China. So when something happened, there are a lot of people who escaped to China. So there are a lot of clients from the local Chinese community that they cannot get the money back from the debtors. So this is what they wanted to utilize the channel of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce with China government and local business community. Actually, this kind of clients are heard in Singapore and Selangor. And this is still when the Qing government, the emperor governed China. But as you know, this Qing government was ended in 1911, and 1912, the Republic of China established. So the ties and relationship that the Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce established was no more. So they had to establish a new relationship with a new country, new state in China. But there was a power struggle escalated in China during this time. There was Yuan Shikai in president office versus National Assembly, in which the Kuomintang was very strong. So what the Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce did was to establish the relationship with both power. For example, the Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce incorporated members of the Penang Reading Club, who was quite close to revolutionaries. Actually, Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce didn't have a relationship with the revolutionaries, so they didn't have a channel to the Kuomintang. So they decided to incorporate Penang Reading Club members. And through those members, at the end, the Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce successfully sent a representative to the National Assembly in China. There were 6 overseas Chinese senators, and one of them was from Penang. And at the same time, the Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce established Republican Party Penang branch in February 1913. This Republican Party is a party established to support Yuan Shikai. So, as you see, this Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce was quite smart to have a safety net to establish a ties with the two powers. Okay, now I get to the conclusion. The Chinese business community in Penang attempted to attain the status to express their views, to influence policy and administration through offshore channels in both Straits Settlements and China. And the Chinese in Penang accepted the system set by the states or the local community and adapted themselves to the system and rules, and they committed themselves to it. It was their way of establishing a relationship with the government and other components of society and to improve their own conditions in both in Straits Settlements and China. So return to the first, my question, that such effort of the Penan Chinese would be out of sight if we follow or stick to the previous theories on political identity of the Chinese in Southeast Asia. Okay, this is, my talk is up to here. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.